On our 5th wedding anniversary, my husband looked me in the eyes and calmly said, "My secretary is 7 months pregnant. It's not my fault you can't have a baby." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I spent the night silently packing my things. The next morning, he walked into the kitchen and found the signed divorce papers on the counter. That's when he completely lost it. It all started with a confession, a quiet whisper from my husband, Zane, that ripped the ground right out from under me. "Audrey, Maya's pregnant." 7 months. 7 months. The world spun. My name is Audrey Robinson, and for 5 years, Zane and I had desperately wanted a child. But here he was, begging me, "Please, Addie, let her keep it. I'll walk away with nothing, just don't take this child from her." I nodded, my mind a jumbled mess. "Fine," I managed, "let Maya have the baby." After all, this was the child he'd wanted so badly, the one we'd prayed for, the one he now had with another woman. Who was I to stand in its way? For years, Zane and I shared a quiet understanding about children. We believed it would happen when it was meant to. He'd always comforted me, saying, "Audrey, don't worry. Good things take time." But then, the pressure from his family started, and his gentle understanding curdled into something cold. He started making subtle comments, then pointed remarks about my inability to conceive. Without even asking me, he booked an appointment with a gynecologist, demanding I get tested. I was stunned. Anger surged through me, and for the first time in our marriage, I truly lost it. "Zane," I spat, my voice shaking, "if anyone needs to get tested, it's you. It's easier for men." His face darkened, eyes narrowing. How could I have a problem? "Are you really not going to consider our future?" He twisted it, making me feel like the one holding us back. The man I knew, the loving, rational Zane, was gone. In his place was someone cold, calculating, and cruel. I took a deep breath. "If you're willing to take the test, then I will too. But I won't accept this one-sided suspicion." His shoulders slumped, the warmth in his eyes replaced by an unsettling chill. From that moment on, he was distant. Business trips became more frequent, lasting longer. When he was home, he was barely there, offering only half-hearted responses. We became strangers living under the same roof, two people bound by a marriage that was slowly unraveling. I foolishly thought it was a phase, that the work pressure would pass. Then, one day, he came home from a trip, and I saw it. The small detail that made my heart stop, his wedding ring was gone. That ring. I had designed it myself, spending over 30 nights meticulously perfecting every curve, every facet. It wasn't just jewelry, it was the foundation of our future, captured in a single piece. Zane had been there through it all, offering quiet support, understanding the love and hope I poured into it. Swallowing the ache in my chest, I forced myself to sound casual. "Where's your ring?" He glanced at his bare finger, feigning surprise. "Oh, I took it off when I went swimming last time. Forgot to put it back on." His casual words hit me like a punch. The emptiness in my chest deepened. This wasn't just a phase. Zane, a man of details, wouldn't forget something so significant. It meant he no longer cared about what that ring represented. The promise, fragile, almost non-existent. I knew I had to talk to him. But before I could gather the courage, something shifted that night. The night I'd planned to tell him my own news, that the diamond ring I designed had become our company's bestseller, was the night he spoke first. "Audrey," he said, his voice heavy, emotionless. "I need to tell you something. Maya, my secretary, she's pregnant. 7 months now. 7 months. The math clicked in my head. That was right after our argument about children, right when he started pulling away. The signs had been there, clear as day, if only I'd been willing to see them. "Audrey, I'm sorry. I was drunk. It was just that one time, I swear." His voice sounded muffled, distant. His words didn't reach me, didn't ease the pain. My hands shook as I reached for my glass. It slipped, crashing to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Each shard a reflection of the brokenness inside me. 7 months pregnant meant the due date was only 2 or 3 months away. He'd known all along, silently allowing this child to grow, without a thought for how much it would devastate me. The betrayal felt unbearable. Then he added, Maya tried to terminate the pregnancy last month, but it didn't work. Her body's been weak ever since. He truly believed this pathetic attempt to fix his mistake would redeem him. A failed abortion? What a lie. The baby was too strong, too determined to be erased. Now he had no choice but to face the consequences. So, Zane, what exactly do you plan to do? I asked, my voice steady, betraying none of the anger or heartbreak churning within me. Seeing my controlled demeanor, he relaxed, thinking I was coming around. He grabbed my hand, his grip eager, excited. Once she gives birth, we can raise the child as our own. We'll give her money and send her far away. This way, he won't have to suffer anymore. He smiled as if offering me a gift, genuinely believing this was a reasonable solution. My nails dug into my palms. The sharp sting of pain barely kept me from laughing aloud at the absurdity. Zane, you knew all along how much I struggled with infertility. You knew the heartbreak I felt each month. And yet, when you accused me of being selfish for not bearing children, it wasn't because I didn't want to. It was because I couldn't. You knew all of this, and still you chose to betray me, to put another woman's child into our lives, into our marriage. How ridiculous. How utterly pathetic. How did you become this person? Or perhaps I never truly saw you for who you were. We had been together for 8 years, since university. He was the student council president, I was the head of etiquette. We were the perfect couple, the envy of our friends. He had been shy, uncertain, but grew into someone passionate, devoted, full of love. Everyone said we were meant to be. Even my notoriously difficult father spoke highly of him. I had believed them. But now he expected me to accept the child he conceived in betrayal, and he had the audacity to say it was for my own good. Zane, when you wear a mask for too long, taking it off will tear your skin. Seeing you in this pathetic state now, it's nothing short of disgusting. There was no way in hell I would ever accept this. No forgiveness in my heart. If Zane had persuaded Maya to have his child, there must have been a promise, a temptation. Just give birth, he must have whispered, and I'll divorce my wife. And now he was offering to let us raise the baby, thinking it would keep me in check. Zane, you really have it all calculated, don't you? Every angle, every move, all designed to maintain your perfect little facade. I took a slow, deliberate breath, wiping away the tear that had escaped. I looked up at him with a serene, almost gentle expression. Then make sure you properly compensate Leia for everything she's been through, I whispered, my voice calm but edged with something he couldn't quite read. He froze, his expression faltering for a second. Then, seeing my controlled demeanor, his tense features relaxed, and he smiled, a rehearsed smile. He stepped closer, his familiar embrace wrapping around me, but there was something cold beneath it. Don't overthink this, Audrey, he murmured. That baby is ours. Thank you for supporting my decision. Thank you, I responded, my voice quiet, almost too agreeable. But inside, everything was shifting. I wasn't just supporting his decision. I was quietly plotting my own. A few days later, I arranged a full medical examination, keeping it to myself. I needed answers. A week later, the results came in. Every indicator was perfectly normal. No sign of infertility, no issues with conception. A quiet relief washed over me, quickly overshadowed by a heavy realization. There was a very high chance the child in Maya's womb wasn't Zane's at all. 5 years of marriage, and we'd never conceived, yet they succeeded on the very first try. The irony was almost laughable. My mind went back to that day, to Zane's reaction when I asked him to get checked. So confident, so sure he couldn't be the problem. Almost like he was hiding something. A secret buried deep. If you want a child so badly, I thought, so badly that you'd betray our marriage, abandon every ounce of morality, and deceive everyone around you, then fine. I'll give you what you want, and I'll make sure you get exactly what you deserve. Later, as I sat at a cafe, surrounded by the scattered papers of the post-nuptial property agreement, Maya came looking for me. The weight of the paperwork was a constant reminder of the mess Zane had created. After his confession, we'd spoken once. I told him I'd consider his proposal, but I couldn't just overlook the betrayal. He looked at me with guilt-ridden eyes, pleading, Audrey, I was wrong. If you can forgive me, I'll do anything. He swore he would never betray me again. I looked at him calmly, my heart pounding. Right now, I feel incredibly insecure. But because I truly love you, I'm willing to trust you one more time. But inside, I knew I had to take control. I no longer trusted him. But there was something deeper driving me now, something beyond forgiveness. Zane, I suggested, if you truly want to ease my worries and make me feel more secure, how about transferring our jointly owned fixed assets to my name? He stiffened slightly, hesitation flickering across his face. I genuinely want to continue our life together, I pressed on. That's why I'm only asking for this to give me some peace of mind. If I truly wanted to leave, I could just file for divorce. We've been together for 8 years. I can't just let go that easily. I will accept this child and raise them as my own. I'm willing to give you another chance. My voice trembled slightly, a single tear slipping down my cheek. He fell silent, his mind at war. He chose to believe in the obedient, reasonable woman he'd spent 8 years with, believing everything was still under his control. Oh, how arrogant he was. A week later, Zane transferred all our fixed assets into my name, notarized. He did it partly out of guilt, mostly to keep me from leaving, afraid I'd do something drastic if I realized too soon I might be cast aside. He tried to placate me. When Maya showed up today, I knew this moment had come. I deliberately left the notarized documents in plain sight on the table. I wanted her to see them. She sat across from me, her face tightening as her eyes landed on the papers. Zane gave you all the properties, she asked, her tone laced with barely concealed anger. I smiled, calm, almost amused. It's just some compensation, that's all. I asked, why are you here, Leia? She absently ran her heavily adorned fingers over her round belly, trying to gauge my reaction. When she saw how unbothered I was, disappointment flickered in her eyes. She deflated, her confident air slipping away. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but deliberate. Sister, I came here today to apologize. I raised an eyebrow, surprised. Her apology felt calculated. I've been pregnant with Zane's child for 7 months now, she said timidly, but her hand never stopped caressing her belly in that deliberate, almost provocative motion. I nodded, my face betraying nothing. He already told me. Since you're 7 months along, you should focus on taking care of yourself. I let the silence stretch before adding, if it's a Robinson child, I'm sure Zane's parents will be very welcoming. For a split second, she stiffened, her fingers tightening around her cup. Of course, it's Zane's child. What else would it be? She replied firmly, though a tremor of uncertainty lingered. She sounded so certain, her expression steady. Yet, deep down, I knew the truth. After sneaking around with Zane for so long, she must have assumed there was no doubt. How unfortunate for her that Zane turned out to be so unreliable. Not long after, my friend Elise, who worked at company headquarters, messaged me. I had asked her to look into something discreetly. After some digging, she uncovered something that made my blood run cold. 8 months ago, Maya had a boyfriend. Many people had seen him picking her up from work. But for some reason, they broke up. Not long after, Maya resigned, citing personal reasons. Whispers spread. She was pregnant. Everyone assumed it was Zane's. Audrey, why are you looking into this? Elise asked, her voice laced with concern. She knew. If you need anything at all, just tell me. I'll do whatever I can to help you. Her words were a lifeline. Thank you, Elise, I said, my voice softer. I do need your help. Can you find out more about Maya's ex-boyfriend? For someone as socially adept as Elise, it would be nothing. That morning, after a product development meeting, I suddenly felt unwell. I left early. As I walked toward my apartment, I heard it, raised voices, a heated argument drifting from behind my door. You actually put all the properties under Audrey's name? Maya's voice was high-pitched, shrill with desperation. Then what will I have left after marrying you? Inside, Zane was silent, but the tension was palpable. A faint smirk tugged at my lips. My carefully planted information had worked. She was upset about the prenup. It's just some houses, Leia. I have other assets. Zane's voice broke through, laced with frustration. A loud crash, porcelain shattering. My heart skipped a beat. Then, Maya's bitter, mocking laugh. You think I'm an idiot? I've been suffering through pregnancy for 10 months and I get nothing, while that woman does absolutely nothing and walks away with a dozen properties. I pressed my hand to my lips, barely suppressing a laugh. For someone I once thought of as a master manipulator, she was surprisingly impatient. She had leverage, still had the upper hand, but here she was, throwing it all away in a fit of rage. The argument escalated, her sobs filling the air. Then, something that made my eyebrows shoot up. I'll abort this baby right now. Maya's voice trembled with raw emotion. I'll make sure you never have children again. I blinked. Oh, that was a line she should never have crossed. If there was one thing Zane valued above all else, it was having a child. As I predicted, the air stilled. And then slap. A sharp slap rang through the room, followed by the unmistakable sound of a struggle. The bookshelf shifted. Then, just as abruptly, silence. Maya's cries, her protests, all stopped. Enough, Leia. Zane's voice was cold as ice. If you dare to get rid of this child, I will make sure your entire family suffers the consequences. I could almost picture his once gentle eyes, now sharp and merciless. Maya didn't utter another word. She knew Zane had the power to back up his threats. After that day, something subtle shifted in Zane's behavior toward me. He started coming home on time, avoiding unnecessary business trips, even giving me gifts again. He was suddenly putting effort into maintaining an illusion of normalcy. I played along, feigning cooperation, though every part of me knew exactly what was happening. Zane had once planned to divorce me after the baby was born and marry Maya. But after witnessing her breakdowns and seeing how I had transformed into the picture of understanding and obedience, he was reconsidering. He was realizing that maybe the easy solution wasn't the best one. His sudden shift likely meant he was genuinely planning to take the child, pay Maya off, and cut ties with her entirely. But that wasn't enough for me. As Maya's due date neared, I found myself encouraging Zane to visit her more often. Not because I had accepted the child. No. I wanted him to invest more of his emotions and energy into this baby, to bind himself to it, so that when everything eventually fell apart, his disappointment would be that much more crushing. To my surprise, he seemed reluctant. His indifference spoke volumes. His disdain for her had grown so deep he couldn't bring himself to be near her. Darling, I said softly one evening, placing my hand gently over his. Leia's child is our child, too. If I were the one visiting, she might feel uncomfortable. Our relationship is complicated. You're the only one who can step up. You should spend more time with them. It'll help you bond with the baby before he comes home to us. He hesitated, brow furrowing, but then his expression softened. He pulled me into his arms. You're still as understanding as ever, he murmured, his voice laden with sorrow. If only we could have a child of our own, that would be wonderful. There was deep regret in his words, a genuine longing. But it only made me more aware of the gap between us. As I leaned against his shoulder, I felt a tension building in my chest. I should thank the heavens for revealing your true nature to me. If I ever had a child with someone like you, it would be the greatest stain on my life. At 39 weeks, Maya gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Inside the hospital room, Zane's parents' joyful chatter drowned out the newborn's cries. Their excitement spilled into the hallway where I stood alone, leaning against the cold wall, my face calm. I should have known. They had been aware of this child from the beginning, conspiring with Zane and Maya, turning a blind eye to the betrayal. And now they were celebrating a child whose origins they'd chosen to ignore. A memory surfaced, my wedding day, kneeling before Zane's parents, offering them tea. His mother had been overwhelmed with emotion, tears glistening, voice trembling. Now, listening to her laugh, her joy echoing down the hallway, I wondered, had it all been a performance? Everyone, including me, believed I had a near-perfect marriage, a successful and devoted husband, kind and loving in-laws. What a cruel joke. Pushing those thoughts aside, I knocked and stepped inside, placing the freshly made soup on the table. As I turned to leave, Maya's voice stopped me. She turned to Zane's parents with a deliberately sweet, obedient smile. Mom, Dad, could you step out for a moment? I have something to discuss with Audrey. Zane's parents hesitated, their expressions shifting with unease, but eventually left. They were afraid Maya and I would be left alone. How quickly the warmth of family could turn cold. As soon as the door clicked shut, Maya's gentle demeanor vanished. Her gaze sharpened into a cold, triumphant glare. Audrey, you've already lost. Mom and Dad just told me they're ready to have Zane file for divorce. Did you really think he was going to take the child and raise it as yours? That was just a temporary excuse to pacify you. Now that the baby is safely born, you're no longer needed. Enjoy your last days as Mrs. Robinson while you still can. Her taunts barely stirred any emotion in me. Calmly, I ladled the soup into a bowl. The steam still curled upwards. I glanced up at Maya. Her complexion was dull and shallow. Childbirth had aged her visibly. She was 3 years younger than me, yet looked at least 5 years older. I didn't bother arguing. Instead, my gaze shifted to the baby in her arms. His skin was noticeably darker, almost unnaturally so. Zane was fair-skinned. Maya had always been pale. This baby, if he got any darker, might as well be from an entirely different lineage. I arched a brow, then smirked, my voice deliberately taunting. Oh, Leia, I hope you're not getting ahead of yourself. Brag all you want after you actually set foot in the Robinson household. Otherwise, you're just working hard to prepare my victory gown for me. My words struck a nerve. Maya's eyes filled with hatred, her entire expression twisting with malice. A sudden wave of unease crept over me. And sure enough, Maya's fingers suddenly tightened around the baby's tiny arm. A sharp pinch. In an instant, angry red marks bloomed on the delicate skin. The baby's cries filled the room. Right on cue, Zane's parents burst back in, panic on their faces. Before I could process what happened, Maya's voice rang out, shaken, distressed, dripping with accusation. Mom, Dad, you have to stand up for us. Audrey said she wanted to see the baby, but the moment I looked away, she pinched him. Look, his arm is swollen. My in-laws immediately pushed past me, rushing to examine the child. The moment they saw the red marks, Zane's mother's expression darkened. The warmth she once had for me was completely gone, replaced by resentment and disappointment. I shook my head, silently denying the accusation. But I already knew the truth wouldn't matter. To them, between their daughter-in-law of many years and a mother who had just given birth, they would always believe a mother would never harm her own child. As the baby's cries subsided, Zane's mother spoke in a low, measured tone. Audrey, you've seen it yourself all these years, and you still haven't been able to bear a child. Although we truly like you, we cannot ignore certain pressures. Now that Leia has given birth to Zane's son, we want to offer you some compensation. Even if you divorce Zane, we will always be family. Hearing this, the tension in my heart finally eased. Unable to hold back, I let out a soft chuckle. Her grandson had just been born, and she wasted no time getting straight to the point. How typical. A family so hypocritical, so indifferent. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I lifted the bowl of soup I had just poured and downed it in one go. Mom, this fish soup, you taught me how to make it 4 years ago. I have always respected and cherished you. But today, this will be the last time I call you Mom. There's no need to talk about family anymore. Goodbye. 1 week later, Zane came to me with the divorce papers, sooner than I expected. I had deliberately provoked Maya during my hospital visit, intending to pressure her into pushing Zane to divorce me as soon as possible. I needed him to feel the deepest guilt when negotiating, ensuring I received the maximum share of assets. With Zane growing increasingly frustrated and helpless toward Maya, I genuinely feared he might choose to keep the baby, but discard the mother. Fortunately, Maya and Zane's parents did not disappoint me. I looked up at Zane, my face carrying the same familiar, gentle smile. But he looked utterly exhausted. His usually well-groomed hair was unkempt, dark circles under his eyes. He clutched the divorce papers, his gaze shifting between the document and me, conflicted and pained. Audrey, I'm sorry. I swear I never wanted to divorce you, but I had no choice. Leia is threatening me with the baby. My parents are siding with her, pressuring me endlessly. I had no other option. He slowly pushed the divorce agreement toward me. I lowered my gaze, focusing on the asset division. Since we had already notarized the property under my name, there was no dispute. 15 properties, 7 luxury cars. As for Zane's savings and company shares, he had written an 80-20th split, 80% to me, 20% to him. That genuinely surprised me. I had consulted a divorce lawyer beforehand. In cases where one spouse is at fault, they typically receive 10 to 20% less. I had planned to fight for at least 70% if his offer was anything lower. But now, this arrangement saved me the trouble. Just as I picked up the pen to sign, Zane suddenly grabbed my hand. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, his voice trembling. "Audrey, I know you've suffered. I truly thought everything would go as I planned, but Leah has been threatening me every day. She says if we don't divorce, she'll jump off a building with the baby." I had no choice regarding the financial compensation. "Don't worry, I will transfer everything to your name immediately. And in the future, if you don't have children of your own, you can treat our son as yours." A wave of disgust surged through me. I withdrew my hand from his grasp, my expression cold and indifferent. "There's no need for that, Mr. Robinson. From now on, take care of yourself." With that, I picked up the divorce papers and walked away without looking back. Zane had no idea that if I ever wanted a child, I would have one of my own. But as for him, that was no longer an option. Over the next 2 weeks, I sold off all the company shares Zane had allocated to me at a high price. The profits were significant. Staring at my bank account balance, I couldn't suppress a satisfied smile. Then, I received a message from Ezra Sullivan, Maya's ex-boyfriend. Elise had already tracked him down the week Maya gave birth, but I chose not to meet him until my divorce was finalized and the shares sold. Now, the timing was perfect. When I finally met Ezra, I didn't bother with pleasantries. His appearance was rugged, unrefined, a far cry from what I had expected. I sat across from him and pulled a photograph from my bag, Maya holding a baby, standing with the Robinson family. Ezra glanced at the picture indifferent. "We've already broken up. This has nothing to do with me." I sighed, resisting the urge to roll my eyes. If we go by the timeline, Leah got pregnant around August of last year. At that time, were you absolutely certain you had already broken up? Or, to put it more bluntly, are you sure you didn't sleep together after that? Ezra's brows furrowed. He seemed lost in thought. Then, realization dawned. "Wait, are you saying this child might be mine?" I gave him a firm nod. He stared, stunned, before slowly lowering his gaze to the photograph. He sat frozen for a long time, his fingers tightening around the edges of the picture. Then, suddenly, something clicked. He pulled out his phone. A long list of hotel booking records filled the screen, most from July to September of last year. The dates aligned almost perfectly with the periods when Zane and Maya had returned from their business trips. So Maya had been keeping herself busy, traveling with Zane, then coming back to meet up with Ezra. I methodically took screenshots of every page. Then, turning back to Ezra, I proposed a deal. "I can tell you the truth, but you have to promise not to mention my involvement." Ezra nodded without hesitation. "All right," I said. "That boy is yours. 100%. The man in this picture, he used to be my husband, but he has fertility issues. It's impossible for him to have gotten Leah pregnant." Of course, I wasn't actually 100% certain, but I needed Ezra's fury to work in my favor. The moment my words landed, bang. Ezra slammed his fist onto the table. The quiet, mild-mannered man was gone. His face twisted with rage, his entire demeanor turning aggressive. "Where are they?" The fury in his voice was unmistakable. I had heard that men from rural or traditional backgrounds took bloodlines and heirs very seriously. Seeing Ezra's explosive reaction, especially his shift when I mentioned the boy, only confirmed those rumors. Without hesitation, I handed him the addresses of Maya's postpartum care center and Zane's company. Ezra gripped the paper so tightly his knuckles turned white. He was clearly seething, barely keeping his emotions in check. Yet before storming off, he still managed to turn back and thank me. After all, if I hadn't revealed the truth, he might have never known he had a biological son, one that Maya had been using as her golden ticket to wealth. The next time I heard about Maya and Zane, it was from the local trending news. I clicked on the leaked report. And there he was, Ezra, standing in front of Zayn's company headquarters and the postpartum center, holding up a massive banner. The words were bold and impossible to miss. Company CEO Zayn and my ex-girlfriend Leia, return my son to me. Seeing this, I couldn't hold back my laughter. I scrolled down to the comment section. Over 1,000 comments had flooded in. Most said the same thing, just get a paternity test. Nothing else matters. Honestly though, that kid looks nothing like the CEO. He's way too dark-skinned. No test needed. We already know who the real father is. Apart from the paternity test, others began to speak out. Zayn just divorced his ex-wife in July, and the child was already born by then. It's clear that the affair is undeniable. This CEO looks so familiar. Why do I feel like I've seen him at a urology clinic? At this point, my fingers froze. A urology clinic. If what this netizen was saying was true, Zayn must have known from the start that his fertility was an issue. Yet, he still went on to make all these despicable choices. The public uproar quickly gained momentum, and the trending topic shot to the top of the local news charts in Oceanside City overnight. The company's stock price plummeted. I looked at the substantial sum of money in my bank account and couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. This was exactly why I hadn't contacted Ezra before the divorce. If Ezra found out, he would have immediately caused a scene. And if I had divorced Zayn afterward, the shares I would have received would have already lost much of their value. But now, after selling the shares at a high price, I could finally let Ezra make a fuss. This was the best course of action. The trending topic stayed at the top of the local news for an entire day and night before finally losing some of its heat. At that point, Elise came to me with the latest gossip. Did you hear, Audrey? The child really isn't Zayn's. Yesterday's drama caused such a stir. So many people went to that maternity center just to watch the chaos. Zayn must be completely furious, insisting on having the paternity test done. Word is the secretary almost jumped out of the maternity center window to avoid the test. And when the results came in, the Robinson family looked absolutely pale. As Elise spoke, she pulled out her phone and opened a group chat called Oceanside City Gossip. Dozens of videos were shared. One, about 20 minutes long, showed Maya, disheveled in a hospital gown, kneeling and grabbing Zayn's sleeve, begging him not to conduct the paternity test in front of everyone. Zayn kicked her away, even stepping on her stomach a few times, his eyes bloodshot. He used the foulest language to insult her. Zayn's parents just stood by, silently wiping away their tears. About 5 minutes later, Maya suddenly rushed toward the window as if she had lost her mind. She tried to jump from the 8th floor. Onlookers stopped her, but she kept shouting, "You useless man. No wonder you and Audrey couldn't have a child after 5 years. You blame me for cheating, but you're the one who's broken. Pathetic. Which woman would ever have a child with you, Zayn? You'll never have heirs in this life." Elise laughed uncontrollably, leaning closer to me. There's another video where Zayn receives the paternity test results. In the video, Zayn held the report, his face grim. He tore the report to shreds, furiously punching the hospital wall. His hand bled. Meanwhile, Maya, sitting nearby, looked like a woman in her 40s or 50s, her eyes vacant, skin dull yellow. In her early 20s, her face had already begun to sag beyond recognition. She stared blankly out the window, completely indifferent to the noisy crowd of onlookers and reporters. Elise snickered. Now Zayn's been cuckolded, his reputation in ruins, double trouble for him. Maya's dreams of entering high society are shattered. And now everyone's mocking her. Hilarious. Seeing this, I couldn't help but feel a sense of joy inside. In just a few months, I had gone from being the one betrayed and discarded by the Robinsons to now holding the majority of their family's assets. And I had also gotten rid of a husband who was nothing but a useless, infertile man. With that thought, I smiled and put my arm around Elise. Come on, sis. Let's go on a trip to Northern Europe to celebrate. After all, the money I had now was enough for several lifetimes of spending. By the time Elise and I returned from our trip, Oceanside City had already entered its second spring. Those wild days in Northern Europe had finally allowed me to unwind, to release the tension I had been carrying. Looking back, I couldn't help but shudder at how vulnerable I was. Facing the schemes of the Robinson family and Maya alone, one wrong move could have trapped me in an endless quagmire. But thankfully, I managed to hold my ground. So much had happened in Oceanside City during the 5 months we were away. Zane, caught up in his affair, was fired from his job at Oceanside Corporation for mishandling personal matters. The scandal destroyed his career. The industry blacklisted him completely. In his fury, Zane directed all his anger at Maya. Neighbors reported seeing Maya battered and bruised, and late into the night, the sounds of domestic violence echoed from their home. During our trip, I had received a call from Zane's mother. Her voice was trembling, full of tears as she pleaded for help, asking if I could send some money. She told me Zane couldn't handle the blow and had been drinking and wandering aimlessly. Recently, he'd been diagnosed with a difficult-to-treat illness. Maya, too, had suffered a mental breakdown and was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Now both needed money for treatment, but the Robinson family had been drained dry. I listened to Zane's mother's cries, but I didn't offer much of a response. I gave a few short answers and ended the call. To be honest, by the time I heard this, I had no sympathy for them. Instead, I found a strange sense of satisfaction in their misery, almost like a form of entertainment. Zane and Maya's fate was what they deserved. Whatever they went through next, I no longer cared. I would only focus on myself. In the following days, I turned my attention to designing my new quarterly collection, a starry-themed ring for single women. When I was married, my designs focused mainly on wedding bands. But now that I was divorced, my focus had shifted. This change in my identity brought new thoughts and inspirations. I wanted to encourage other women facing difficulties in marriage or relationships to be brave and embrace their independence. A single woman's ring is a great idea, someone in the meeting said, but why the star theme? Stars always accompany the moon. It doesn't seem to reflect the core concept of female independence and self-sufficiency. I almost found myself at a loss for words. But then suddenly, I remembered the sky full of stars I had seen in Northern Europe. Actually, most stars are independent celestial bodies shining with their own light, I explained. They don't rely on the moon to exist. Just like you and me, we are independent individuals. We don't need to rely on anyone or any relationship to define our existence. My words resonated. The idea of a starry-themed single woman's ring began to take shape in a new light. The room fell silent for a moment as my words hung in the air. I could see the faces around the table, some with a hint of surprise, others with new understanding. The atmosphere shifted from doubt to curiosity. One of the senior designers, a woman who had been skeptical, leaned forward. I see what you're saying now. It's not just about the star design. It's about empowerment. It's about showing women that they can shine on their own without needing anyone else to validate their worth. She smiled, her tone warmer than before. Encouraged, I continued, my voice steady and confident. Exactly. This ring isn't just a piece of jewelry. It's a symbol for every woman who has walked away from a relationship that didn't serve her. For every woman who has chosen herself over societal expectations. This ring will be a reminder that she is enough on her own. The others nodded, some taking notes, others exchanging glances that spoke volumes. The idea was finally beginning to take hold. The theme wasn't just a design concept, it was a message. A message I was passionate about, something that came from my own journey, my own transformation. The rest of the meeting went smoothly. Ideas flowed freely, and everyone seemed energized by the new direction. As we wrapped up, the design team was already brainstorming ways to bring the starry-themed ring to life. I could sense a real excitement in the air. As I walked out of the meeting room, I felt a sense of accomplishment. It wasn't just about the designs anymore. It was about creating something meaningful, something that could make a difference in the lives of women. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was truly on the right path. I had started this journey unsure of myself, unsure of my future. But now, with each step I took, I was becoming the woman I had always wanted to be. Strong, independent, and unapologetically myself. And that, I realized, was the greatest design of all.